In this video, I will share with you some future predictions for education, at least the way I see it. The world is constantly changing. Do you remember using a typewriter? How about reading an actual printed book? Maybe you even remember writing on a chalkboard or watching a movie via reel-to-reel. How about sitting anxiously by your home phone waiting for a phone call from that special someone? If you don't want anyone to know how old you really are, please don't answer any of these questions. Starting with the middle of the 18th century, technological innovations have been changing the world. Because of these innovations, there was an increased need for manual workers in factories, as well as more skilled technical workers, and an even smaller professional class of lawyers, doctors, and scientists to provide services for those who could afford them. Industrialism needed a lot more manual workers than it did college graduates, so mass education was created. It was built like a pyramid with a broad base of compulsory education for all, a smaller sector of secondary education, and a narrow apex of higher education. Systems of mass education were designed to mold students to certain requirements. Because of that, not everyone made it through the system, and some were rejected by it. Industrialism demanded compliance with specific rules or standards. Sound familiar? This principle is still applied to education today. The standards movement is based on compliance in curriculum, teaching, and assessment. The 19th century brought about change and solidification for the American school system. Old methods saw improvement, and new methods were introduced. As a result, a more cohesive schooling system came about, which still influences education to this day. State-sponsored education became the norm and replaced the religiously driven education system of the 17th and 18th century. At the beginning of the 20th century, the basic principles and foundations for public education was already in place. Free, universal, and compulsory education had developed deep roots. Now for the 21st century. Computers, cell phones, the internet, and a multitude of creative innovations are popping up everywhere. The home phone is almost obsolete, and almost everyone, including toddlers, have cell phones. Computers are in almost every home, and everyone knows how to use Google to search for information on the web. Students in almost every school have access to computers, and everyone born in this century has been exposed to technology their entire lives. The future for education is now. We hear so much about 21st century education. At the start of each century, we begin to take a serious look at education and what's working and not working. We have talked about how education has progressed over the centuries. Change is happening all around us. Many schools have changed the way they are looking at students and how they learn. It's time to take a look at the student of today and what they need to succeed. The traditional classroom is steadily changing. Almost all schools use some form of technology and have access to computers and other forms of technology. The way a typical classroom looks now varies by location and/or district, funding sources, and innovative teacher training. 10 years from now, I predict that more classrooms will take on a new look. We will see more learner-centered classrooms. Society is still not ready, however, to completely give up its old traditional methods. We will see more and more teachers utilizing flipped classrooms, project-based learning, augmented reality, and virtual realities. Teachers will finally get the message that change is inevitable. Let's fast forward to 50 years from now. The traditional classroom has finally taken on a new look. The new norm includes flipped classrooms, brain-based learning, teachers as coaches, badges and certificates replace college degrees, IQ tests are banned, emotional intelligence built into the curriculum, and finally, no more standardized tests. Let's not forget flying cars. Finally, the only thing constant is change. No matter what we do, the world will be a drastically different place in a few years. 50 years from now, we can only hope that most of the kinks will be worked out. Let's not forget that some of these things have been discussed for many decades. America is slow to give up old habits. Real change takes time. Let's be the pioneers that make things happen.